Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Today I have the pleasure of company of Prof M D Nalapat, and we're going to talk about the geopolitics in and around India as India still tries to find its way through this COVID crisis. Prof Nalapat, welcome to PGurus channel.
Thank you.
So Prof Nalapat, the Chinese intrusion, things are still kind of in a state of flux. Every time they have these flag meetings at Major General level, everything is agreed to. The Chinese say, we will do it, we will do it, we will do it, we will withdraw, but they don't do it. So this game started somewhere in, I think, late May maybe, and it is now already August. So 3 months, June, July, almost 3 months. And this thing continues. What, in your opinion, is happening, sir? And how do you think India needs to put an end to these kind of adventurisms that China is indulging in?
Well, Sri, I'd like to say that, in my view, security policy should be based on worst-case situations, and you prepare for the worst case. You hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst. In the case of this particular round of intrusions, and may I point out that right from 2005, when the UPA came, the Chinese have been relentlessly moving forward and extending the line of actual control, which they don't recognize. They don't recognize because for them, it's a movable line. It keeps moving forward and forward. So this particular situation took place because in April, they started amassing a large number of troops in sensitive locations. Now, I mean, I'm told that a country which India regards as a good friend told people in the government, don't worry, this is nothing very much. The Chinese soldiers are only there for exercise. They need to, basically have some place to exercise. After they have the exercise and they enjoy the scenery and the weather, they'll go back.
Sir, I'll name the country for you, sir. It is the Russians. In America, they used to have a joke, the Russians are coming, the Russians are coming. In this case, the Russians said that the Chinese are coming and the Chinese are going to stop on their side of the LAC, which they did not do. Please continue.
Well, all I'd like to say is that I had been hearing right from April, frankly, both from external sources as well as from a very few internal sources. And I'd like to say that, today, a system has been created in which unless you're a member of the IPS, you're not really considered to be knowing anything about national security or anything about terrorism or any such operation. Well, I'm not a member of the IPS or the IAS or the IFS or any of these services. So this has been a slightly, what do I say? But I was given the knowledge in April about this massing, and the people who talked to me were very worried about it. These are friends of India from outside, and these are people in India who are concerned about the country on the inside. And I was expecting some kind of counteraction on the Indian side. And I was a bit surprised to find nothing. And then, to no surprise, the Chinese marched right in. And they marched kilometers inside. And frankly, I think, we believe that, I don't know what we believe, because there were some discussions that took place. And with every discussion, I was happy. I looked at the television, and the television said, well, there's no problem. Everything is now normal. Everything is fine. And, I like television. And I was very happy. But then people used to tell me, I'm sorry, nothing is normal. The Chinese have done nothing. They have stayed put. And they're moving forward. And they're mobilizing more people. So I simply want to say, Sri, that somebody goofed. Somebody also goofed, for example, in some earlier situations that took place, in Pulwama, for example. Somebody also goofed in some earlier situation that took place, for example, in a particular air base in India. And in India, somehow, and a lot of aircraft, suddenly, high-performance aircraft with really gallant pilots, something happened to them in midair, and I was informed that there was some problem, in some cases, in the maintenance function. Were we doing a check of people in the maintenance function? Were we doing a check of their social media? Were we doing a check of their contacts and what they did in their spare time, whom they met? And the reply I have got to this day, frankly, is that look, we trust people. Air Force people say we trust other Air Force people. The other people, the other services say we trust our people, and everybody trusts everybody else, and nobody really investigates as to what is going on. Very important sabotage took place of a nuclear submarine in India. Sabotage has taken place of aircraft in India. And, none of this, as far as I know, any satisfactory explanation has been given as to why this happened. It's always seen as human error. Frankly, I'll tell you, our pilots, our soldiers, our sailors, these are outstanding people. These are patriotic people, definitely. But at the same time, there may be certain issues regarding some people, and therefore it's very important to have a complete scan of anybody who's performing an essential function, such as, for example, maintenance of critical equipment. We can't afford to lose a nuclear submarine. We can't afford to lose a high-performance aircraft. We can't afford to have people enter an airbase, for God's sake. We can't afford to lose so many people, so many security personnel moving in a whole convoy of buses with, as far as I could see, very little perimeter security. But then in none of this is there any accountability. I don't see the accountability. So, Sri, very frankly, unless we have a culture of asking hard questions of ourselves, unless we have a culture of accountability, and unless we hold those responsible and we punish those responsible, this kind of situation is going to continue. As an ordinary citizen, completely outside the government, completely outside the system, it pains me when I see our brave people die, civilians and people in the military. It pains me. And I also want to add, I know people who are in the police, in the military, in the civil service. Let me say the overwhelming majority are wonderful people. We have great people in the police. We have great people in the military. We have great people in the security services. Great people in the civilian bureaucratic establishment. But it doesn't mean everybody is great. So my point is very simple. We need a system of trust but verify. Anybody doing an important function, trust but verify. Unfortunately, we trust, we don't verify. That, at least to me as an outsider, that seems to be the case, because in this particular case, I was warned more than 6 or 7 times by people in India and 11 times by people outside India that the Chinese who are massing on the border have the intention of coming into India. Well, if I knew that, an ordinary citizen, I'm surprised nobody in the government did.
That is strange indeed. And viewers, you can connect the dots as to what the incidents Professor Nalapat is mentioning. I'm a lay person and I'm going to tell you what I'm understanding. One is the Pulwama, the other one is the Uri. It's all nice when you see a jingoistic movie come after a year and a half and show the good guys bashing up the bad guy. But the reality is, why was it allowed to happen? That is the question. And having happened, what is the corrective measures the government is taking? Is the government placing all its security concerns in one basket? And is that basket good enough to be able to have a 360-degree view of what is happening around the country? You wanted to add something, sir?
Sri, let me tell you that Prime Minister Modi is under attack. We were talking about, in an earlier PGurus hangout about a certain billionaire who's spending money against him. The reality is that a lot of people wish India harm. They want to see a weak India. They want to see a divided India. And may I say, Sri, I say this with a full sense of responsibility. As someone who predicted the riots in Delhi 3 weeks before it happened, when Donald Trump came to India, and someone who has predicted what is now happening in Bangalore and what is being planned in other parts, that soon after the 3rd of November, in case the Democrats win the election, there will be an effort to create a similar chaos across the country. These are enemies of India who are operating, and we need to be alert about them. Now, our messaging, frankly, has not been the best all over the world. I have friends in so many international publications. I'm shocked at what they're writing about India. I'm shocked at what they're writing about Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi is not the individual who is being described in these columns. Now, part of the reason is that our enemies are active. And also, let me say, let's not forget, we ourselves are not active enough to ensure that the toxicity of these enemies is done away with. You cannot just sit back and say, oh, well, that's wrong. That's not correct. And these are horrible people. Yes, these are horrible people. And they want you to do horrible harm. And may I say, Sri, my country has suffered enough over 70 years because of that perception that, oh, something has happened, okay, then that's okay. We can just forget about it. We need not take strong action. I am happy to see under Modi 2.0, there is a distinct change from Modi 1.0, a distinct change, and a change for the better. And I'd like to say, I want that change to be there in messaging also. There's no need to be apologetic about India, wanting a strong India, because as Prime Minister Modi does, as the people of India do, absolutely no need at all. So I do expect that in Modi 2.0, a lot of the problems that have been worrying me and you for so many years will get ironed out.
And I hope so too, Professor Nalapat. And I want to move our attention to a different country, a country where you have invested a lot of time and effort in bringing them closer to India. And I'm talking about Sri Lanka, sir. And the recently concluded elections bore out what you told me a year and a half ago, that Mahinda Rajapaksa is the right person to lead Sri Lanka, and that he will come back, and he has indeed come with a thumping majority. A lot of viewers, you don't know the amount of work Professor Nalapat has done, groundwork, to try and make people see their way clear through some of the obfuscation that media creates around India, which is what we've been talking about. And the same thing, unfortunately, rubs off on our neighbors too. So somebody has to go in, somebody who's a patriot, who has the best wishes for both sides, goes in and explains, this is the reality, this is what it is, and please don't just ignore all the other stuff. This is where we want to be. And then make sure that whatever he is able to promise as a citizen of India is followed up by the government of India. And a lot of these things have happened. You have to go back and read the newspapers to see the effort. This man is an unsung hero, and I tip my hat to you, sir. You are the reason why I'm running PGurus. You are the reason why I'm writing all these novels. I hope you had a chance to read my book too. But before that, perhaps you can add a little bit about Sri Lanka.
No, I want to add that, frankly, I'd like to give credit to Dr. Subramanian Swamy, who has played a very, very important role also in ensuring that a correct perspective was formed. And I want to give full credit to Prime Minister Modi. Many people in the bureaucracy were frankly opposed to the Rajapaksas for some reason. And they were not very happy about President Rajapaksa being invited by Dr. Swamy and myself, former President Rajapaksa being invited, and his son, a very bright young man, Nepal, to India. And in fact, I think a lot of effort was made to prevent Prime Minister Modi from agreeing to a meeting. But Prime Minister Modi agreed to a meeting of nearly an hour with Nepal and with former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. And I think that meeting was very important in a sense, melting the ice. And I think it's so very important, Sri, we go out of the box. And in India, the problem in India, I'll tell you, if you're not in the police, you can't understand security. If you're not in the civil service, you can't understand domestic policy, including economic policy or anything else. And if you're not in the foreign service, you don't know anything about diplomacy, and you don't deserve to be anywhere where anything concerning foreign policy is discussed, at all. I mean, frankly, in every part of the world, I've seen think tanks, I've seen, business professionals, I've seen people involved in all these key elements of policy. I've seen the military directly involved in defense policy. This is the only country where you have created these comforting little silos who talk only to each other. And I'm sorry to say, many of them say, their main duty is to protect the cadre. So mistakes that have been made 30 years ago, 40 years ago by somebody, a batchmate or a cadre mate, well, you can't really make that transparent, because then, you'll get a bad name to that batchmate, and who knows, 20 years later, somebody may point some mistake of mine. Look, I would like to see Modi 2.0 be fully transparent about the past, because knowing the past, studying the past, we can understand the present and the future.
Professor Nalapat, you brought about an interesting point when you were observing about China. See, India has passed an order that it will not import anything from its neighbors, rather than saying directly China. Let's assume that it definitely includes China. Now, is, in your opinion, imports from China completely banned? In other words, if China cannot get in through the door, are they going to try and get in through the ventilator, the window, the seams, what have you?
Sri, I think we are very far from a situation where the Chinese are not enabled to get in through the door. But I think the Prime Minister made a brilliant move regarding apps, Chinese apps, because that has really affected the development of artificial intelligence in China. The Chinese were looking at Indian metadata to refine their own artificial intelligence systems, by the way, the military in China is actively using to support the military in Pakistan. So I think that is a very brilliant move. I presume that a similar move is going to be made on 5G. I hope 5G is not just going to be one particular 5G product. I think we should ensure that we have a Taiwanese product, we have a South Korean product, we have a European product, and we have a domestic product as well, and let them compete with each other. So, and above all, then we should have cheap spectrum. This idea about charging the moon for everything which is owned by the people. What are you doing? Spectrum, land, coal, whatever is owned by the state is owned by the entire people. And the people deserve a fair shake. The people don't want you to make extraordinary and extortionate profits. They want to have a price which they can afford. And on telecom especially, in today's age of COVID, telecom is crucial. And I do believe we have to lower the price of spectrum, lower the price of many of these feedstocks, lower our taxes, lower our regulations. As the Prime Minister says, minimum government. Officials do not like it. Many officials are loving this COVID situation because now they can say, you go here, you don't go here, you stop going there. I mean, it's become like what happened during demonetization. Every other hour, the Reserve Bank came out with a new law on we should do this and we should do that. And people were going absolutely crazy because every few hours, you look at the television, there's a new law being explained by the Reserve Bank and by the Finance Ministry. The point is, Sri, minimum government is maximum governance. The people of India will do best if you don't interfere with them. I admired Prime Minister Modi for saying at the very beginning of his government that, look, you don't have to have a gazetted officer sign. I will accept an Indian citizen's signature. That similar trust today he has shown. He has shown by talking about a simplified income tax system. That is why I'm saying Modi 1.0, frankly, I have made some comments about that to you as well. And I think I have made these comments as someone who admires the Prime Minister and want him to succeed. Those who are sycophants, those who try and say things and try to get things out of that are different. Let me tell you, the people of India love Prime Minister Modi because he's a sincere person. And I can tell you, Modi 2.0, in every respect, is turning out to be a quantum improvement over Modi 1.0, despite this horrible COVID situation that has come. And also the fact that as yet, reform does not seem to have entered the portals of the Finance Ministry.
That was a very quick summary of what you've seen. And I think credit where credit is due. We tip our hat to Prime Minister Modi for looking at simplifying the income tax code. In an ideal world, why should a small creamy layer pay all the taxes while the richer ones don't and the poorer ones don't? It has to be equitable taxation. And I think India is, again, not going straight, but finding its zigzagging way towards that. Well, it is moving, which is a good thing. Now, Professor Nalapat, to round off the thing, how are things with Nepal going? Looks like there seems to be a thaw there also.
Well, I can tell you, Sri, that on the surface, the Chinese may be winning, but frankly, so far as the broad mass of the Nepali people are concerned, India is winning. And the reason for that is Prime Minister Oli has now clearly shown that he is not a Nepali. I think Prime Minister Oli has probably changed his citizenship and he's probably got some kind of a secret passport. The man is serving the interests of some other country besides Nepal, and the Nepalese people realize that. India and Nepal are essential together. India and Sri Lanka, you asked me about Sri Lanka. If Colombo lost Indian traffic, Colombo would be bankrupt. It would be the same desolate situation that Hambantota is, frankly. And that's why I hope that the Rajapaksas will soon ensure that India and Japan begin to work at Trincomalee. The sooner they do it, the better for Sri Lanka. I'm not talking about better for India or Japan, the better for Sri Lanka. And if they hesitate in doing it, well, then we should move faster on the Andamans. So whatever traffic we were there in Colombo, whatever traffic could have been there in Trincomalee, can all go via the Andamans, and then you can see that the condition of Trincomalee and Colombo will be roughly what Hambantota is today. So I just want to say, Sri, that I am optimistic, and I'm also optimistic because any country in South Asia that is opposed to India will find itself in meltdown. India is an indispensable partner. The Chinese may be a partner for some elites. India is a partner for the people. And I think the more the people assert themselves, including in Pakistan, where the people assert themselves against a Wahhabi, rapacious army, I think the more you will see that India and our relationships become stronger. We depend on the people, and the Chinese Communist Party depends on the elites.
Thank you for that, Professor Nalapat. And viewers, Trincomalee is an Tamil word for Tirikonamalai, which means a pyramid-shaped mountain. And there is a temple of Shiva there, Tirikonamalai temple. And those of you who visit Sri Lanka for tourism, do find a way to go to Kadirgamam as well as to Tirikonamalai temple. Lots of Hindu temples that are actually lying in ruin now because not many people are going there. There was a state of unrest on the island for 30 odd years, but they are picking themselves up. But here are some sites. This is supposed to have been built by Rajendra Chola in 1020 or something like that, AD. So it's about 1,000 years old. And there are lots of places like Ashok Vatika is another one, for example. So please do visit Sri Lanka when things get a little bit better. They seem to have managed their COVID crisis a little bit better than India is. Of course, the population, the magnitude of the population, you can't really do any comparison anymore. But point here is that all our neighbors, all of India's neighbors are precious. Everybody has to be taken along. And I think Prime Minister Modi is doing that. And with that, we would like to bring this talk to a conclusion. If you would like to add something, Professor Nalapat.
No, I would only like to say, Sri, I fully agree with your optimism. I am also optimistic that the overall economic policies will change and reflect minimum governance. I am also optimistic that the heavy hand of the bureaucracy will be reduced. The Prime Minister has made his intentions amply clear. He's a strong man. He's a determined person, and I'm sure he will convert this desire of his into reality over the course of Modi 2.0 and earn for himself Modi 3.0.
Thank you very much, sir, and namaskaram.